I'm so happy to be a part of this Ground Hog Day YouTube hop. On this hop, we choose a layout we have made before and we're going to make it again. And what is really fun is we've signed up to make it again next year for Groundhog's Day. And the year after that, and the year after that, you get the picture. So in choosing a layout to make, I went back to my favorite layout of 2025. I'll have a link to that video down below. That layout was made from a sketch, and that sketch can be found on the Creative Memories virtual crop sketch, and it was the one chosen to be the say thank you to Noreen Smith as she retired from the company. And as just a bit of fun, we made the sketch with a little story about how Noreen had touched our lives. I love doing that. And I also really loved that sketch. And so this is the sketch. And this is the one I'm going to make again on Groundhog's Day every year. That's going to be so much fun. There are other reasons this is going to be fun, but I'll talk about that as I go along making this layout. I will say that having a sketch really can speed things up, and I'm becoming a bigger fan of using sketches more and more. The one thing I don't try to do is match the photo placement of a sketch. I just like to use a sketch for the background and then throw my own little twist in. I've chosen my photos and papers. Now, I had sort of started this little page kit a while ago. And so when this challenge came along, I went, well, I kind of know what layout I want to make. Let's see if I have some papers and photos that I can use for that. I've chosen my photos, and this is my statement paper. It's where I began. I thought the orange especially came out well with my photos. I don't know where I got this paper from. I believe it was from a crop for a grab bag or something, but I do like it and I wanted to use it. These papers came from one of my paper pads, and I'm making using up those paper pads a bit of a priority for me this year. And I'm going to use this paper from a paper pad and this paper from a paper pad to be some decorative elements and be part of the border that is on the sketch. So now I'm about to show the layout that I've been inspired by, and I'm glad I have a sketch for it. That's going to make this process so much easier. This is the layout that I'm going to recreate. Even this doesn't match the sketch exactly, but I really did like how it turned out. And I'm going to really enjoy making it once again. I'm going to go back to the sketch as my start. I'm not going to necessarily try to duplicate this. For one, as always, I make sure that my layouts work for my photos. I don't try to make the photos work for the layout. So you'll see I already have a different configuration of photos from the sketch. But the base design, this base page, frankly, I could Groundhog Day this thing over and over again. Well, oh, I guess that's what I signed up to do, isn't it? So let's get started. Okay, next we're going to cut our 11 inches by 11 inches. And I have put my right hand photos here, so I'd like to keep my left and right photos separate because then I forget which ones went on the left and which ones went on the right. Okay, now this is from a paper pad, and it actually has a little beautiful branding strip. This is from a paper pad I got at Michael's. And I'm going to first take off the perforation. And by the way, I save these because they do come in very handy. Who knows? I might use it on this layout. You never know. Set these aside. Now, these are going to be 11 inches by 11 inches square, these papers. And so I'm going to just cut away 1 inch in both the horizontal and the vertical. I can also do it the same way, and I think I should. So I'm going to measure 11 inches, and that brings me right over here to the 1 inch line quite accurately. So 11 inches by 11 inches. And once again, 11 inches. So now I have my left and right pages, which have their 11 inch by 11 inch blocks. Okay. Next, I'm going to cut my 4-inch horizontal band that goes across the middle, and I'm going to cut that out of this lovely statement paper. I just love this. So 4 inches. 4 inches for the left and 4 inches from the right. And then I can think of so many ways to make variations of this. Okay, so as I'm putting my layout down and I'm getting my photos on it, I realized the colors were not working for me. So I went back and pulled out an old cardstock textured paper pad, and I pulled out a totally different color. Now the green looked well because it was in the photos, but when I started adding the paper that had the bright oranges and yellows and some teal, the green stopped working so well. So I decided to change the background and keep going. So the paper pads often come with these like title pages, and there's a lot of things you can do with those title pages. But one of my favorite things to do is either to make it the mat. Now, if I had had two of these, I believe I would have made it to be the mat for this whole layout. But I seem to have used one of the two that came in the paper pad. And so the nice thing about this one is that it really comes with a nice sized strip that, let's see, I'm measuring right now 3 inches. So I'm getting a good solid 3 inches of usable space over here that doesn't have any decorative design on it. It's just the tone on tone and the perfect color as well. So I'm going to cut this. Actually, I only need 2.5 inches of this. So that's all I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut this at 2.5 by 12. So now I'm going to cut a 4.5 inch strip. It's going to go vertical. It's going to look like that. And then my photos will go on it like that. And I think the color goes well. I'll probably matte these all of my photos with white. Now I've cut this at 2.5, so I want to cut a piece to sort of be a mat to this, and I want to cut it at 3.5. So I'm cutting it 1 inch wider at 3.5 inches. And this is the effect I'm trying to achieve. And I'll show you what I'm going to do with this next. Okay, I am about to make a border that I just absolutely adore making. And as you recall, I cut one piece of paper at 3.5 inches, and I cut this one at 2.5 inches. And so I'm going to take some repositionable tape and just put a little bit on the edges here to put my 2.5 inch piece over top of the 3.5 inch piece, and use my little mat here to help me gauge. There should be 1/2 inch on each side, 1/2 inch on each side. Now, I want this, it's 3.5 inches, so the halfway mark is about right here on the 3.5 inch side. So I'm going to kind of mark my halfway point. This is one of my favorite tools right now. They're custom border templates from Creative Memories. They come in a set of 2. Here's the other one. And so you cut with their blades to give you a variety of shapes. In this case, this one is called the ripple. So I'm going to use this blade. Now what I want is I marked my center point of my border. I want it to end right here or right there, but I'm going to use the one closest to me. Halfway at the halfway point. So I marked it, and I'm going to slide this to where the blade hits my little 1/2 inch mark right there at the end. And I can see the blade when I lean back. So when I lean back, I can see right where the blade is going to hit. And I'm holding my template steady. But if I want to really make sure it doesn't slide, I can put some washi tape. So the washi tape keeps my template from shifting. It really doesn't because it's snug on this plate, but I don't want any shift whatsoever. And just a quick recap, 3.5 inch paper on the bottom, a 2.5 inch white strip on the top, a line in the middle from the far left over to 1 3/4 inch. I'm looking for my blade to touch at 1 3/4 inch. When it hits that halfway point, it looks like I have it. Looks like I'm ready to go. Let me secure my template. Now, if you haven't used these before, one thing I will say, don't start at the end and cut. Start somewhere and then cut to the end and cut back. And that keeps your paper from bunching up. And this, if it didn't go through the 2 layers, you just give it another, came away cleanly, a little bunching, and I now have my 2 halves, okay? So I now have cut this lovely design into my border. The next, I'm going to pull it apart. That's why I used repositionable tape. And I'll now use a stronger adhesive. I'm a big believer in repositionable adhesives until you know you have things on right. So what I'm doing now is I want to have about 1/4 of an inch margin from the top piece and the bottom piece. So I'm going to go over about 1/4 of an inch. And if we're fortunate, it should match up and give me 1/4 of an inch margin like that. And I'm going to take a white eraser and get rid of that little pencil mark that I made. And I'm going to do the same with this side. I'm going to, now I could continue to use the repositionable tape. Um, it does become permanent after it's been adhered for a while, so don't think you can come back a year later and just rip things apart, because it will have become permanent. It just buys you a little time to make mistakes and be forgiven. And actually, even the tape runner, it has a little bit of forgiveness in it as well. Okay, now I'm going to put this down with about a 1/4 inch margin. And I like this. So now I want to decorate these borders with a punch. Now this punch is called Monstera leaves, and I think it's just the right feel for this set of photos. These were taken in Hawaii at the Polynesian Culture Center. And so tropical things like Monstera leaves. And I'm going to cut it with what remains of this paper. And I need two, and I should have enough paper to get two punches. So I'm going to punch. Now, if Creative Memories punches are something new to you, they have a little line right here and also inside where you can use to set the end of your paper. Now, if you're not familiar with their punches, they also have several types of punches. They also have a frame punch. This one is not a frame punch. The frame punch would have a silver line over here, and you would line your paper edge there when you're cutting a frame, meaning all the way around the paper. But in this case, we just want a straight chain of these leaves. And so I'm going to set my edge of the paper right here to begin with. And when you can't see from the front, we have a little hack where we take a Post-it note and we extend the edge of our paper so that now we can line up the edge of the Post-it note to tell us where to start our punch. And of course, always make sure your paper is up against the back lip. And so for you crafters who like to use every bit of your paper, this is all that's left of that sheet of paper. We have our 2 rows of punches, and we're going to put them on like this. So now we have a border with the Monstera leaf. I didn't want the leaves to stand out too much. I just wanted some decoration on it because I didn't want anything taken away from our statement paper. I wanted that to really shine through after the photos. These borders are a little different for me, but I think the overall design is going to be just what I really would like to see. So I think this is my left side. And let me pull up the sketch again to verify that this border runs under this. So this is the base page of the right-hand side of this sketch. I gotta say, I like it. So now let's work on the left side, which has a more simple base. Okay, let's get the left side in. It has a more simple base. Now, in the sketch, the border that's called for is only 3/4 of an inch wide. This is a much wider base than the sketch calls for, but I happen to like it. This is the base page for this sketch. And that's why I love it so much. It really is a beautiful base page design. And now I can work with any photos I like. So let me get this adhered, and then I'll be back to get my photos on. So now I have all the papers adhered and my photos placed where I want them to go. I decided to put a very, very thin white mat around the photos just to bring them forward on the page. Otherwise, I think they would have gotten a little bit lost with all the color in the photos and all the color in the background. Our borders and our paper, they come through, but they don't overwhelm the photos. And that's what we want. We want to keep our photos popping forward, but lying on a beautiful foundation. Next, I'm going to place my photos on the page, and I'm using another favorite tool, which is the recently released centering ruler that fits snugly on the 13 by 13 inch mat, and it will help me really precisely place my pictures down. So no more pictures that are crooked unless I want them to be crooked. And I can even see. So I put a mat on each of my photos, a white mat. The mats are 4 inches by 6 inches. And actually I want to bring this over just a little bit. The mats are 4 inches by 6 inches, so I trimmed a little bit off of my photos. Okay, I'm going to use this line in my mat. So now I know that there's a 1/4 inch. This ruler is really handy. It's got a lot of different lines you can use. I'm going to bring it down to this 3 inches, so I know it's 3 inches from the top. And then I lined up the edge of these photos with this line, so I know that it's 1/4 of an inch separated. And it's nice and straight. I get such great results this way. Just to show an example of how I'm using this, there's a 1/4 inch line here, which I'm lining up to the edge of the green paper. And then this is my center photo. So this is a 0 centering ruler as well as 1 to 12. I'm going to put this 1.5 inches here and up against that. Because I know this is 4.5 inches wide, if I have a 1/4 inch over here, it should be roughly a 1/4 inch there. And I've centered it around the middle of the page at the 0 mark. And now I'm going to come down about a 1/4 of an inch from there. And then I'm going to go up about a 1/4 of an inch from there. And so this is about quickly getting my photos onto my page. Now, because my pictures here are horizontal and not vertical, it won't look like the sketch at all, but I don't care. My base looks like the sketch, and everything else is gravy. So now, what's left to do but decorate? Let's see what I can find to spruce up my page. My sketch says there's some embellishments around here, some embellishments there, a little something here, which in the sketch, I'm going to let this monstera leaf satisfy that one, and then maybe a little something here. Now, they put the title there, but I have a lot of great space right here, so that will be my preference. And here is my final layout. I got my photos all adhered, and then I pulled out some old sticker books and some old Echo Park stickers, and I created a few embellishment clusters. That's not my strength, but I was able to come up with something, and I'm really happy to be using some of this older product in my stash. So I'm very happy to be participating in this hop. I'm very happy to have this layout completed. I'm very happy that I used some older product in my stash. I'm just a happy girl. So, if you enjoyed this, which I very much hope you did, YouTube says there's another video right here that I hope you will go and watch. And have a wonderful, happy Groundhog Day.